Hi, my name is Dr. John Douillard, and welcome to LifeSpa.com, where we prove the ancient medical wisdom of Ayurveda with modern science. And today I want to talk about some modern science and some ancient Ayurvedic wisdom. And with reference to something called the HPA Axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the relationship between stress impacting our nervous system, sending a message from the hypothalamus to the pituitary to tell the pituitary, which is the higher center of the brain, to send a stimulating hormone called ACTH to the adrenals to tell your adrenals to make more cortisol and to fight more stress. Okay? And that system, the HPA axis, can be overstimulated and depleted under chronic stressful situations and cause a host of health concerns. Now, what's sort of interesting is that women and men sort of do this a little bit differently. The limbic system of the brain is way more highly active in women than it is in men. Women, according to studies, have suggested that women are 2 to 3 times more sensitive to stress than are men. And in the limbic system, the emotional cortex of the brain, there are receptors for, of course, stress hormones. So if you know whether to run or fight or whatever in an evolutionary sense, we needed that emotional get out of the way of harm kind of response. But in women, there are estrogen receptors in the emotional cortex as well. In fact, in the brain, the most predominant of estrogen receptors live in the emotional cortex of the brain, which is sort of interesting. And the studies show that when estrogen levels are high, women seem to be sort of better equipped to handle stress. But when the estrogen levels deplete, like they do in the second half of the cycle, when women have more susceptibility to something like PMS or be a little more emotionally sensitive, that happens when estrogen levels are low, and when those levels dip in the brain, the emotional cortex of the brain, then they're linking that to maybe a predisposition, which is why the hormones have to be really stable and really healthy and really balanced, and they're linked to the HPA axis. When the HPA axis is stressed, then we can blunt these, the experience of the estrogen support for the HPA axis. We see that in studies where women were on oral contraceptives or birth control. We see that the natural protection of the estrogen progesterone that it gives to the HPA axis, your ability to handle stress, it dials it down, it blunts that experience. So women who take oral contraceptives actually have issues related to, particularly long-term, with the health and effectiveness of their HPA axis and their ability to cope and handle stress. The same thing happens with women in menopause when they start to dial down their estrogen and progesterone levels, and then that estrogen and progesterone are natural protectors for the HPA axis, which can also be a factor that can make things a little rough during that particular transition. Any kind of stress can dysregulate the HPA axis. Cell phone radiation, although there's a lot more science to be done, has been linked to disruption or dysregulation of the HPA axis. Melatonin, circadian imbalances are linked to dysregulation of the HPA axis. This is like the major way we process our stress, right? So this is a really important thing to understand, and cell phones can do it, circadian imbalances, being up really late at night, not been living in sync with the natural rhythms, which is now Nobel Prize winning science. That's really important as well. And then of course, if you're on your screen, your cell phone at nighttime or watching TV at night, and the blue light blocks your melatonin production, and you're there at 11 o'clock or 11:30 or 12 o'clock at night, and the sun set at 6 o'clock, you were supposed to have melatonin from 6 to 12, but with the screen and everything, you didn't even start the melatonin until 12 or midnight or even later, which suggests that you are significantly depleted in melatonin. Melatonin is a molecule that helps get us to sleep only so it can then do its job, which is to rebuild and repair and support the body, the microbiome, the hormones, the detoxification systems, And of course, it protects the HPA axis, your ability to cope and handle stress. So like lots of really crazy information, and the HPA axis is not something that Ayurveda overlooked. It was understood as this old saying that says that and when prana and apana are in balance, then the whole body's in balance. And when prana and apana are out of balance, the whole body is out of balance. So historically, it was said that if you could just get prana and apana back into balance, that's all you had to really do. Well, what is prana and apana? They're aspects of vata. They're aspects of the nervous system. The prana is an energy, a life force that goes up into the head to give the brain stability and mood stability. And the apana vata goes down for reproductive and adrenal support. Right, so we now know that the estrogens, progesterone, which are part of the Apana vata, the adrenal function, which is part of the Apana vata, very much interact with the Prana vata, which goes up, which would support the HP part of the HPA axis, which is the hypothalamic pituitary part, which that supports the ability for your hypothalamus to receive the stress and a message to your pituitary and send, therefore, an appropriate message to your adrenals, which is the Apana vata, to make the appropriate amount of cortisol. And if you are either menstruating or carrying a baby and there's heightened estrogen in the system, then that estrogen would create heightened awareness in the limbic system. So mom and baby would know way ahead of time that there was danger around, and the survival instinct for the mom and the baby was heightened for women versus men who seem to be expendable. Women clearly are not. So just a beautiful way that women evolved to protect their babies and have estrogen, which is part of the Apana vata, and cortisol, which is part of the Apana vata, be actually experienced or perceived by the Prana vata, the hypothalamus part of the HPA axis. So in Ayurvedic medicine, if you're under a huge amount of stress, the Prana vata may not be enough. We call that overstimulation of the HPA axis, which is a thing, which is a very real understood thing in science. And when that happens, the adrenals will then have to make more energy, and the Apana vata goes up to support the Prana vata, and that brings what we call upward moving digestion and causes a host of related concerns, fundamentally depleting the body's two major fuel supplies or reserve life force energies, both the prana and apana. Because if this is depleted and the apana, which should go down, support adrenal function and elimination and reproduction, and it goes up, you become depleted in that area. So then when the stress comes back, the adrenals have to borrow from Peter to pay Paul, go somewhere else to get the energy, which could be more depletion of reproduction, could be more depletion of things like your blood sugar and even your thyroid. Can be other ways the body bails you out when you've depleted your ability to handle stress through the normal HPA axis called prana and apana vata in Ayurvedic medicine. It's just a beautiful way of looking at the science and the ancient wisdom and how they kind of work together. And I think it's an important understanding. And one of the classic herbs to resolve this problem was the classic, maybe most studied adaptogen on the planet is ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is an herb in Ayurvedic medicine. It's put in soups and stews to rebuild and repair the nervous system. Studies show that when cortisol levels are really high and you're super stressed, ashwagandha seems to help bring that back into balance. When cortisol is really depleted because of overstress and adrenals are burned out, ashwagandha seems to bring the cortisol levels back. So it doesn't just stimulate you or sedate you, it brings balance. Classically, it's that herb that can give you energy to handle stress during the day, but it can also put you to sleep at night. One study showed like 29 people, they had half the group take ashwagandha and half the group took a placebo, and what they found was that the people who took the ashwagandha had about an 88% effectiveness, felt significant improvement with their stress and mood-related concerns, where the placebo group only saw 50% improvement, which is a major difference. And we've talked about placebos in the past and how, the placebo in a scientific world is about 35 to 82% effective, right? And a drug to be approved by the FDA, like an antidepressant drug, only has to outperform the placebo one time to be approved as a drug. So beating the placebo is a powerful thing, and I want you to stay tuned because I'm talking and writing a lot about distance healing and some of the newly discovered biophotons and how they can be responsible for how the body can heal itself and how maybe we can actually have an impact on healing others even from a distance. It's fascinating research that I'm talking about. So anyway, ashwagandha, something to tune into for sure. Studies have shown that it supports women under stress. Even though a lot of people think ashwagandha is just a male or agent, it clearly isn't. The research on ashwagandha shows it's significantly beneficial for women as well. And the classic Ayurvedic herb, sort of the sister herb to ashwagandha, is shatavari, and everyone thinks that's just for women. And interestingly, the science shows that it's significantly good for men, for libido and things like that as well. So these herbs aren't really male or female. They're actually supporting the HPA Axis. Studies show that when you can protect the body from stress, you clearly do with something like ashwagandha, you can protect your HPA Axis with some herbal adaptogenic support. In addition, yoga, breathing, meditation, all of which protect your HPA Axis and your ability to handle stress. So the Ayurvedic lifestyle being very, very important. And also, if you want to learn more about that, I've just finished 2 Yoga Journal video courses, one called Ayurveda 101, which was released last year. And it's all about all the yoga, breathing, meditation, and Ayurveda tools, diet, everything for each season, which is just a beautiful understanding. And then we are releasing here at the end of May 2019, Ayurveda 201, which is all about Ayurvedic psychology and how all of us, and I would venture to say that it's the stress in our lives and our crazy mind that impacts us physiologically, that causes most of the physiological damage and imbalance that we experience, and how important it is for us to navigate that stress and this crazy mind of ours. And that's why I felt it was so critically important to create Ayurveda 201, the Ayurvedic psychology course that we just finished with Yoga Journal. So check that out. That's on my website now at lifespa.com. You can sign up for that now. There's big discounts that are going on right now, so you can check that out. Something that I think is a really important part of Ayurveda is the Ayurvedic psychology part. All right, so thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Do you like this video? Don't forget to subscribe and share.
This recording is brought to you by LifeSpa, where ancient Ayurvedic wisdom meets modern science. Get access to free health video newsletters by Dr. John at lifespa.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.